Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Laurie Smith on Blog Talk Radio. Good evening. It is 7:30 p.m. here in Calgary, Alberta, Monday night, April the 4th. I'm glad to be here. I have a very special guest, actually. My good friend Rae Luskin is here with us tonight. She's a regular guest on the show, and Rae Luskin is a woman who, I'm telling you, is so busy, and to take the time to do these shows is just awesome. So I'm just very happy that we're going to be able to discuss an issue that many adult survivors of child abuse have to deal with at some point in their lives, and that is disclosing abuse. The pros and cons. Should I tell or shouldn't I tell, or what if I do tell, or how will people think? These different types of things that might enter someone's mind who has been abused in the past and may not know how to go about reaching out, or if they should. So that's what our topic is tonight: disclosing abuse. And so Rae Luskin is here with me tonight. Hello, Rae.
Hi, Lori. I'm so happy to be here. I just love our Monday night chats. I mean,
it's awesome.
It's like old friends getting together and just having a good old talk. So
yeah, it is. It's great. I'm glad to have you here. Absolutely, it's wonderful. And I know that the listeners get something out of this too, because you might not get to hear some of this feedback, but I get feedback from people, and they say we just love to hear from Rae Luskin.
Oh, well, thank you. That makes me feel good.
Go.
Yeah, I don't get the feedback.
No, but you will. I'll start. I should be giving you that. I know. Who was it? Kate. I think it was Kate, or somebody had written the last time, or that they had said I recommended it to my group to listen to it, and so people listened. So I can't remember which group it was, but yeah. So thank you. I love to share, because I think that's the only way we all heal, and we make a difference in the world, and we take the experience that we had and make it something extraordinary. Mhm. Yeah, that's right. And that's just it. Something good and something positive can come from something so bad. And I think that's that's a testimony in itself right there, because for so many people, they're still suffering along and not haven't really reached out and haven't told anybody, and just keeping the secret, keeping the silence, not breaking the silence and not getting any help. It's very discouraging. I know, because I was there, and I know what it's like to not have support and to not have someone to talk to. And I think by reaching out and by sharing our experiences, I think we can grow. I think we can learn. That can move past these things. We can deal with them. We can learn how to have a good life, and how to not let the abuse destroy our lives, and I think it's just so important for other adult survivors, to know that, first of all, they're not alone, and sadly enough, there's so many of us out here, and that, there is help and there's hope, and that whatever route they decide to take, whether it's group support or, a private, counselor or therapist, or just talking to a good close friend who they know they can trust, is just to be sure and reach out and not give up, and keep looking for those better days. And because there's bad days in between for a lot of people, and but I would say to just keep looking for those better days. So I love what you're doing, Rae, and I think that we talk about this when you've come on the show before, some of this you have going, and I just for people who may not have caught those other previous shows, you've got a website, raeluskin.net, and Art and Soul, ART.
Right.
And Soul, and I'm going to pop this into the chat room now so people can see this in the chat room.
Thank you. That's really good. Yeah, I mean, I really believe in the value of the arts for healing, and the arts are anything. It's not just, you don't have to be a painter or a sculptor. It's creative expression is really what I'm about, and it can be writing, it can be poetry, it can be a scribble. It's just another way to get the material out of you, get your story out, get your secrets out, because sometimes we don't have words for the experience we've had. So we can find other avenues and other ways to get it out. I mean, and it's not always speaking up; it's also speaking out. I think there's a distinction there, and it's. I love this topic because I think something that came up for me in my process was it was once I told my therapist that was fine, but then who do you tell next? And do you tell anybody? Was it family members? What was the experience? And that can also then. And you may feel safe telling your therapist, and hopefully you do. But, then it's like reaching out to family. And for me, when I told my mother said, oh, I would have killed that son of a bitch. So at least that was an appropriate response in my mind. But when I told my dad, he said to me, well, if it happened, just get over it. It's a long time ago. So I had,
some differing ways people responding to, oh, my God, so who do you tell? And then I really shut down and didn't tell anybody for a really long time because it really wasn't helpful, either one of those responses, as it turned out, because my mother really didn't want to hear about it. She just wanted to vent and, scream, but she didn't want to sit and listen to me,
Right.
So those are pros and cons of starting in that discussion, so.
Yeah, and I know, like, for myself, I had never reached out for traditional type of help, which would be to see a counselor, therapist, or psychiatrist or anything like that. I really just didn't trust in the system. Never would have even reached out for group support, to belong to like an adult survivors group support. I did have some friends that I used to talk to, who would disclose their past to me, so I would disclose mine. And sometimes I would actually lose friends over it because they would just be like, well, you're too needy, or you're just too messed up, you're because of the situation, because I was on my actually this was prior to my healing journey, actually. So maybe I was a bit too needy, maybe I was a bit too much, you know what I mean? That's the thing.
But at the same time, I think too, when we disclose, and I think a lot of times they'll say you're too needy, but it frightens them. I think it's a discussion. Friends are frightened by the intensity, the pain, the sorrow, and then they have to look at their own lives. Where have I been exposed to any kind, and I'm not just talking sexual or physical, but the emotional abuse. Where am I in my own healing journey? Do I really disclose who I am to people? Am I really authentic? Do I censor myself when I talk to people? And all those things. We all carry shame, and we all have secrets, and it can be from the littlest thing to the biggest thing, And so I think that's the other reason that people sort of would run away. I had that experience, too, when I got divorced. All of a sudden, all my friends disappeared. It was like, where'd you go? They didn't want to deal with it. It's too painful, and it made them look at their own lives. So there's a lot of pluses and minuses of sharing, So.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's right. And just, through trial and error, so many people, can probably relate to this, in their own lives, right? I think, really for me, I think when I finally decided to go public, I just started writing a public-facing blog, and I wanted to share with the world, because I thought, well, I don't necessarily just want to share with one person. I want the world to know what happened to me, and my family, not just me, but my family, and I wanted the world to know the truth. And I thought, well, so people, people obviously in my own immediate family, like we all grew up in that home, and the ones that are still living, we all know what happened. But for people on the outside, many of them are pretty. Really not really wanting to they're sort of in denial. You know what I mean? Like the people that knew my parents and that knew the family. So it does, for me to talk to them, it doesn't do any good. And I have talked to a few life coaches, so a few counselors and a few therapists and whatnot, since I started doing Blog Talk Radio, and they've been very helpful. They've really shown me that there are a lot of good people out there, and that there are people that do care, and that they do really want, to see people learn how to help themselves and learn how to, to work through this stuff, and so they can have a good life. So I before this, I really didn't trust the system, and really just thought everybody was kind of out to hurt everybody. You know what I mean? And so it's nice. It was kind of refreshing to hear from some of these people who. That's their life. That's what they do. They try to help people to overcome, these types of issues. Whether the abuse was, like you said, emotional, verbal, psychological, physical, sexual, doesn't matter. They're there to try to help people out, and I think that's awesome. So, yeah.
It may take some searching on your part to find the right therapist for you. I think that's the key things too. Not everybody works the same way. Not everybody, has the same tools. Because there's a vast range, and there's what's so cool right now is there's a lot of other modalities out there that weren't around like when I started my search, things like EFT, emotional freedom technique, which is a tapping thing, and and there's other kinds of physical releases, and so there's a lot of different ways to approach healing, and they all require you to share your secret. They all require you to somehow tell your story. In some way that works for you, and it may be a little piece of it, and it may be a bigger piece, And I think for survivors, they're so afraid all the time, and they don't stand in their power. We lose power from the experience. And so
right.
I think it's really important to be able to stand up and say our story. And it doesn't have to be repeated 18 million times. It can be said once and be really powerful, and you honor yourself and your path and your journey, and you can let it go. You know, I do believe that, and I think that's really critical. And we also then have to think about what can we ask of the person who's listening to us. You know, you ask them, you don't want feedback, necessarily. You're not asking them for anything other than maybe they say one positive word to you, that you ask them for something, you may have to set boundaries when you tell your story. And I think those are some of the things that are important to think about when you find a person or a group, or if you decide to share. And I did 12-step work for a long time, and and I shared in a 12-step program, and it was like really scary. But they say you're as sick as your secrets, and and it's like, okay. And part of it is you give your fourth step away, and the person's just supposed to really listen and really hear you and validate your journey. And it was a gift because wow, somebody actually heard me, and I was like, wow, okay, one little step forward,
Right, just one more part of the process of being able to look at it, because in order to disclose it, you have to look at it. And a lot of people, because it's so painful, and many times, survivors, the pain of looking back at the abuse is so great that they'd rather not face it. And I think that's where, that's where it's important to get some help, if a person is struggling with that, and, to make sure you do reach out and get some help with it, because, you don't want to suffer along in that. That's horrible. I know.
Well, I've been talking to some people lately, and these are people who've been on a journey for a long time, and they've dealt with therapists and stuff, and they still have shame about it. And that's something that we learned and we took in as a child, that there was a shame and guilt that we experienced, and we took it upon ourselves. But it is not our shame and guilt to bear, We didn't do anything, We were innocent, in this situation. So, and it breaks my heart, when I hear that. And it's like, so, I mean, it's interesting because I was talking to this woman who I know is a talented artist, and she's written things, and I said, maybe you need to really get it out there, get your word out so you can just honor yourself, and really honor the losses that you experienced, and, write a poem that you publish. There's so many websites now out there doing that. You can put it on a piece of artwork or a poet, and I've just started doing that myself. I've written tons, but I didn't share it on a website, and I finally did, and it's like I got some really incredible things back, some great validation. So,
yeah, absolutely.
And so I think that's part of another way of telling your story is not, and it was like, mine was very generic, in the sense I didn't go into the abuse, but I went into the feelings of how I felt. That I was hurt, I was wounded, that I felt defective, and these are all universal, unlovable. And yet I didn't have to re-victimize myself by sharing the details. And I think that's a slight distinction from a lot of stuff because we're all worried about re-victimization. And when we say, I was abused, then your whole body shuts down, And so maybe there's another way to do it. There
are. That's why, that's why it's awesome, like, because, we all have different ideas, and we all sort of experience different things as far as the healing journey goes. And that's why I really like, having you here on the show, Rae, because you offer another different insight to the whole thing that, I may not have thought about, somebody else may not have thought about, you know what I mean? I mean, for me, I wanted people to know exactly what happened. I was very graphic and detail-oriented in my book and my books that I wrote that were blogged originally, right? Well, it was a blog originally, but that's because of my little inner child. We wanted people to know the truth, and I thought, no, the world needs to know what happened to this little inner child, my little person. And so, but a lot of people, and I knew I was putting myself out there, and I was also willing to take the flack, whatever came from it, because I want my little, my inner child was screaming to have her story told. And so I thought, no, I'm the adult now. I can protect her, and I can say it's okay. You know what I mean? That
Right.
So I was okay with that, but not everybody might be okay with that. So like what you said, Rae, like people don't have to necessarily get into the details, but just to allow themselves to express what it did, like how it hurt them and how it affected their lives.
It's the loss, it's the anger, it's whatever the feelings were, the shame, the guilt. It's what was that like, and so. I want to make it clear, nobody wants you to be re-victimized, and so that's really an important piece. So for you, you needed to do that, to talk about the details. And, like we said, not everybody can or wants to or feels it's necessary. So, we make that differentiation for ourselves. We're adults.
That's right. That's exactly right. It's
and we
important.
have to honor where we are in our healing and our process.
Right, absolutely. And everyone is different, and everybody needs different things. And I think that, it's just important for adult survivors. What I've seen out there and read out there, especially from like places like the Adult Survivors, the Adult Survivors of Child Abuse, the ASCA.org, and groups like that who have like the Survivor to Thriver workbook and whatnot. They always say, that a person needs to really know, to really take a look at themselves, an adult survivor, to really look inside and make sure that they truly know what they want out of their healing journey and how they're willing to go and how much they're willing to to expose of the abuse and whatnot, you know what I mean, in order so that they do not become re-victimized. So like you said, setting boundaries, and knowing just how much a person really wants to disclose, you know what I mean, and being comfortable and realizing that everyone is different and that we all handle things differently, we all need different things, and that's okay, right?
Right,
There's
right.
nothing wrong with that. So, absolutely.
I mean, there are pros and there are cons. We started to talk about this before we went on, and I've mentioned this before, that I really never really discussed the abuse with my husband at the time. I said I was abused, and that was pretty much it, And I left him out alone in the cold, as they say, because he didn't know what to do with that then. Right. And so... just recently in the last couple of years, because of the work I'm doing and telling more of my story and the effects of how it happened and what it meant to me in my life, he actually understood better, and we came to honor each other in a different way, and I think I healed some of the pain of our relationship by sharing. And so those are some of the good things about sharing, that when you can do that, it can honor yourself and the other people in your lives. My kids are the same thing. I didn't really talk about it, and now they have a much deeper and greater understanding of who I am today, and why I do what I do, and where my passion comes in, and sometimes my craziness,
right.
because of my story, and I was willing to share. So, as we say, there's pros and cons to sharing and picking the right people and knowing when the right time is, and there is no perfect time. I don't believe it's like there's no perfect time to have a kid. There's no perfect time to tell your story. That, again, is an individual's decision, and they have to figure that out for themselves. But, if it is causing you pain, if it's causing you to hide or feel like you're living a lie, in any way that you're living a lie, that you're disconnected and separated from friends or family because of it, then you got to really think about, is it worth holding in this secret anymore?
Mhm. Yeah, I hear it is hard. I've had people ask me, because of my book, and of course what I'm doing, I'm really trying to, to promote, my, not necessarily just my story, but promote the issues around adult survivors and to raise awareness and education regarding the issues surrounding child abuse, period, and also everything to do with it, including adult survivor issues. And I have a lot of people ask me, like, how was it when you wrote your book and you went public, when at first it was a blog and then you went public with your story? Like, did it affect your life? And did you know, when you wrote it, were you scared that people in your family would get you for writing it? And there was a whole lot of, comments and questions about that, and it was understandable. And I think a lot of people, for me, I sat back and before I did public with my story, I actually thought about it for a couple of weeks, and I took some real time to think about the consequences of going public with my story. And it's not necessarily something everybody would want to do. You know what I mean? I weighed the consequences, and I felt that I could no longer not tell the truth. it was more important for me to tell the truth than to hide it and hold it in and keep it to myself any long. And so for me, it was a relief to write the book. But for many people, it would be, for them,
it could be an extra burden. I mean, we honestly,
right.
It's like
exactly.
You don't want to hurt the rest of the family. It could destroy your family. It can cause fights. I mean, there's a lot of different. You can be ostracized by your community by coming forward. So, I mean, you got to be realistic. And that's why, I mean, we're both out there trying to say we need to find ways to support survivors' journeys in all communities.
Right. That's
and that
right.
they need to honor their journey, and we don't. I mean, very few places do today. And then that's part of the mission we're both on, trying to make that happen by telling our story so that somebody else could feel safe coming forward and sharing theirs.
Yep, that's right. And like you said, at their time, when they're ready, if and when they ever decided to. And like you said, there's no perfect time to do that. So, but it's just so that people will know that hey, there is hope. There is help. I had seen so many people, just in searching around on the internet, mainly looking at, websites, survivors' websites and whatnot. And I won't name their names. There's just so many of them. I mean, just go on all night trying to name these people off. But so many awesome voices, people who have survived the most horrific abuse, out there saying you can do it. We encourage you to keep going. And of course, that's such an encouragement for me, right? And so
right.
I thought, man, I want to be on that end of it. I want to be a voice out here saying you can do it. You know what I mean? Because these people encouraged me, right, to keep going and keep moving forward and allow myself to heal and allow myself to like you said, to honor my past, my what I've been through, to honor myself. And I think so many of us don't do that. And
right,
so
we sort of push it down and we either say minimize what we've been through or minimize the journey and what courage it took to come forward to share your story. I mean, this is not easy. I know it took me a long time to really be public with it, and yet I feel I'm living a more authentic life because of it now.
Right.
I mean, so much of my life was based on doing my volunteer work, by doing so many of the things I did, and becoming, involved in the arts because it was my healing journey. It was like that's why I did what I did and what I still do today. So it has led me to something else, which has been very empowering and freeing. And, I took back my power for me by telling my story.
Right.
And it's not
that's
everybody.
Awesome.
And there are so many people. I just want to tell you, we love you no matter what you choose to do today. We just want you to feel that, and I hope I speak for Lori as well, that if you need to tell someone, you will find the right person. We just don't want you to carry the shame that keeps you small and hidden and afraid all the time and keeps you distant from people. It's because that's when you're allowing the past to run your life, and that's what we want. Survivors should be free. They should have that ability to do whatever they want in their lives rather than, living based on this thing that happened to them, this experience, because it is only an experience today. It is not their lives. It doesn't have to define every moment of their life.
Right. Yeah, that's the issue. And that's where I knew and recognized the problem 4 years ago when I began my healing journey. I realized 4 years ago that I was basically allowing what happened to me as a child rule my life today, And 4 years ago, I thought, what am I doing? I mean, like this is insane. You know what I mean? To let something destroy my life that was from the past. You know what I mean? Like I need to live for today. I need to live for the future. I need to live for myself and not allow myself to be destroyed and kept down so small and living in, as this little shell of a person, really. Even though most people would have thought I was doing just fine because I was really able to pull it off. You know what I mean?
You
that's
can be very high functioning. There is
people
no question.
learn. Yeah, that's right.
And a lot of people are. It's just you have to decide when it is stopping you from living the life you'd like to live.
That's right. That's exactly right. Yeah, and allowing ourselves to heal, and I think that's a big thing. Actually, give ourselves permission, like we were talking about on one of our last shows. There, to give ourselves permission and say, I'm going to allow myself to heal. I'm going to allow myself to learn to love myself and to learn to, to reach out and get help and to help other people and to make this life the best life that I can possibly have, it's an awesome feeling to be here, but I mean, we know what it's like to be on the other side of that, and that's why we're doing what we're doing.
And I think too, I mean, it does make a difference because now you've experienced this, you can stop and change your legacy. There doesn't have to be a legacy of abuse in your family or your community because you've stepped out and honored your story. So, and I think that's a big plus. Again, there are pluses and minuses to this whole experience.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's a gift that we give ourselves. At least for me, is stepping out and sharing my story. It has made a tremendous difference. It allowed me to talk about things that I would not have talked about before, or and experience. So, yeah, it's been a gift by sharing my story for me and for other people, because I've gotten feedback, you really, you saved my life, people have said that to me. It's like, I didn't know anybody else felt like that. I mean, how many of us go through life feeling we're alone, we're the only one?
Mm-hmm. A lot of people. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And unfortunately, there's millions of us out there who have.
I know.
Yes,
Right. It's sad, but it's the truth, and that's why we keep saying, and many other people have said before us, you're not alone, and keep looking for whatever works for you. Like, I mean,
right.
There's so many people that say, not everything works for everybody. You know what I mean? You have
right.
to find
you have to find your own path and be willing to play, investigative reporter, detective, or play at it. Even just be an adventurer and say, okay, this hasn't worked, but maybe this will. Maybe
right.
pick up the right book today, go to this healer that I heard about, go to this workshop, attend this church, whatever it is, I mean, there's
right.
so many paths to coming into your own and then loving yourself. And right. you just have to honor that, what path works for you. And it could be a combination of many things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. And what would work for me may not work for somebody else. And then what works for somebody else may not work for me. We have to find it. We
right.
have to find it. And having the courage, to step out and look for it, that's where it's all at. Because once you do take that first step, you start to realize, hey, that wasn't so bad. And it's like you take another little step and it's like, all right, and once, I mean, like I said on many of my shows here, that, once I started reaching out, all these hands started coming back to me, and I couldn't believe it. I had never had so much support in so many decent people in my life ever, you know what I mean, until I started reaching out. And that's
what was great too, Lori, is you allowed it to receive. That was one of my later lessons about asking and receiving. I mean, first of all, I hated to ask for anything. So finally when I started to ask, but then it was like opening my heart to receive it. So like, oh, I loved it when you said people like that I come on the show, and I have to take that in. It's not it was something I had to teach myself and still do. I don't, that's not my general nature. It's like I sort of live in this silo, and I have to force myself to reach out, It's just not the way that I lived most of my life, and I hope to change that and make it an easy thing now. But it's just something that happens, and it's all part of whatever your journey is. How did you experience your, what happened to you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. I know. Well, that's just the thing. And so many people have experienced. I mean, all of us have experienced different things because no one's experience can be the same as another person's. But like, as far as knowing, how much pain a person can be in and how much suffering they've been in, it's very encouraging, and I hope that we're encouraging people, to reach out where you can when you decide it's right for you, to make that choice for yourself, to allow yourself to heal and get some help. Right? We have about a minute left. So Rae, you're working on a new like a project that you have going on.
I am. I'm going to actually be doing some coaching. I've decided that I think that there are a lot of people out there who are ready to go to that next level, who are the high-functioning survivors, I would say, at this point, who would like some extra modalities, like to play with the arts and creative expression in ways that tell their story so they can really, I think, make peace with their past in a different way. And so if they contact me at RaeLuskin.net, we can set up an appointment for, I call it a discovery session on the phone where we can just talk and see if we're a fit, because I do believe that. I'm being honest here. I'm not going to be the person you want to talk to if you're just beginning your journey. So, I have to honor that. That's one of my boundaries at this moment, that I'm taking the people who have done some work already, who are ready to try some other things, who have either said, I've been in therapy for 20 years, it's not working, I got to get out, I'm willing to try anything. So that's sort of where I'm at.
Right, someone who's already working through the healing journey and sort of. So
they've done therapy or transformational work or, work by themselves, that kind of thing. Because I really believe that I can take you to that next level and honor you in your journey and witness your magnificence until you can really grasp it. Because I believe that you are all brilliant, beautiful people, and sometimes we forget. We get caught up in our story of the childhood experience, and we still come away feeling wounded and broken and unlovable. And I know there is so much beauty within each of us, and that's what I want to hold for you while you're working through some of these other issues in different ways.
Yeah, that's awesome, and I think that's so many people can benefit from that because so many times, we don't even know where to begin, and I think, Rae, you do. You have a real good set, realistic way of looking at how do we empower ourselves? How do we help ourselves to feel good about ourselves? I know this about you because of all the work that I've seen you do and all the shows that we've done in the past. And so I know that anybody, including myself, could benefit from this who's already been on their healing journey and just maybe feeling, not sure how to connect. Because I think that you understand, how to help someone connect with that, with that part of ourselves that is beautiful, that is unique, that is creative, that is, you know what I mean? Whereas
right. And thank you. That's really wonderful, Lori, because, I've been actually thinking about a tagline, courage, the healed heart, where courage, connection, and creativity come together. Because it takes courage to do the work you're doing, and every day it takes courage to heal and make a choice. And so I applaud you. And the connection is connection to yourself, to your higher self, but also to the people you love and how you want to connect with the world. So thank you, Lori. That was
awesome.
perfect.
That's awesome. Well, that's exactly how I feel about it. You certainly do know how to how to do that connect thing, and I appreciate that about you because it's hard for myself. I'm kind of lagging and lacking in those skills, and so I know that it would be helpful for me as well. You know what I mean? Every time I talk to you, it's very helpful for me. So thanks a lot, Rae.
Well, thank you. I love talking to you for the same reason. We just we just feed off of each other in a good way.
Absolutely, that's exactly right. So thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. Next Monday, we're going to have you're coming back on the show, and this is awesome. April the 11th. I hope everybody can be here, same time, same place. If it works for you, Rae, 7:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time.
Yes.
And we're going to be talking about using our creative expression for, for healing and for voicing our unique story, right? And our stories.
Right. That's it.
That's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
So
Lori, it's the same time, right?
Yes, that's right, 7:30 p.m.
And I definitely, because I think it just takes us again. It's like, let's play with it. And so next week we're going to do a little more play, and I ask everybody bring a pen, paper, crayon, scribble. We'll do a little scribble and doodle together kind of thing as we work through it.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. I'm so looking forward to that. I'll have my pen and paper ready.
All right, it sounds great. Okay, Lori, I will talk to you next week then.
That sounds wonderful. You have a great night, Rae, and take care of yourself until next Monday.
All right, bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in, and we appreciate everybody who's listening to the show. And I thank everybody who's following the show and tuning into the archives as well as listening live. It's a lot of work keeping up with all of my shows, and so I really appreciate everybody who's taken the time to do this, right? Thank you so much for being here. And I just, keep looking for that hope, never, ever give up. That's my big message, never give up. It's so, there may be bad days, right? We all know about, all of us are survivors of, many people, everybody knows about a bad day, but especially abuse survivors. We know about a lot of bad days. I would say to keep looking for the better days. Look for the good days. They're coming, but they won't come if we give up. And so that's my big message. Don't ever, ever give up. Have a great night, everybody. Talk to you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Good night.